Elizabeth Warren is up next. We also talked about her in a post game and who she might pick as a VP. Drums.
Yeah, I feel like this discussion, if I remember correctly, got a little spicy. You and I disagreed a little bit about whether an all-women ticket could actually work.
Who was on the side of the all-women ticket? Who was against the all-women ticket? Oh my God, already there's drama.
Lots of drama.
All right, but also what makes a great VP pick? So let's watch all together.
Elizabeth Warren had an interview with the Associated Press and people are wondering, who are your likely VP picks? And she said some things that well, let me tell you what she said and then we'll discuss.
All right.
So Warren said she would consider Kamala Harris as a potential running mate. Many in the party favor Stacey Abrams, now campaigning for voting rights, which makes a lot of sense, after narrowly losing the gubernatorial election in Georgia last year, mostly because the Secretary of State who was running against her was in charge of, making sure the election wasn't like rigged or anything like that.
And purposely rigged it in his own favor. Hey,
right.
Who could have seen that coming?
Now it's a totally separate story, but I thought it was fascinating that she brought up Kamala Harris. She also mentioned Biden. Warren also told the Associated Press she would be open to considering Biden for the role he played under Barack Obama.
That would be vice president. Yes, well, that would be trippy, wouldn't it? Biden back to being vice president.
So, Cenk, you're noticing the pivot, right?
Well, so I hear you.
It's a pretty significant and open, it's a pivot.
Yeah, well, so there's another half to this story that you did mention. So let me mention that first. She said, I see absolutely nothing wrong with an all-women ticket. And they said, well, Hillary Clinton lost Donald Trump and sexism could affect things. And so are you concerned? She's like, no, not concerned. So first of all, playing the role of Cenk Uygur today is Cenk Uygur to defend Elizabeth Warren. Number one, I love the idea of an all-women ticket. I have no problem with that at all. We don't run away from a fight, we run to a fight, okay? And so the idea that, you shouldn't consider a woman as your VP pick if you're already a woman, preposterous, and also not true. So Bill Clinton picked Al Gore, which was very similar to Bill Clinton. And so people are like, knucklehead doesn't know. You're from Arkansas, he's from Tennessee. At the time, Bill Clinton was more of a conservative Democrat and so was Al Gore. It turns out Al Gore was a lot more progressive than Bill Clinton was, but we didn't know that at the time. And so they were like, that's such an amateur move. No, you double down on what got you there. And meanwhile, Hillary Clinton played reindeer games and was like, I'll pick Tim Kaine because he's from Virginia and super boring and not, et cetera, right? And he's a male and I'm female and all that nonsense. If she'd picked Elizabeth Warren to be VP, she might have won because remember, any slight difference and she would have won. And so it would have doubled down and it might have attracted more progressives to vote for her.
Yeah.
So that's point one.
I disagree with her on that as well.
Really? I was about to say, I'm sure we don't disagree on that.
No,
really, why?
Well, okay, but Cenk, you gotta separate yourself and your own preferences from what the reality of this country is. We live in a racist and sexist country, period. We do. 100%. Look, I'll give you an example, not even related to the election. Emma is a very good friend of mine. I love Emma, okay? We haven't had a single point of conflict ever, right? We support each other, we look out for one another, we're genuinely good friends. She does the show with us all week last week because I wanted her to do the show with us all week last week. She was in town, why not? Let's have her on the panel. And a bunch of dudes are like, why do you hate Emma? They try to find catfights between women that don't exist. One other example, right? I'm critical of candidates, politicians, regardless of what their gender is, regardless of what their sex is. I don't care, right? What matters to me is policy. So if you're a woman and you critique, let's say Tulsi Gabbard, it's because she's jealous. Jealous of what? What is there to be jealous of?
No, I hear you, but that's like you're battling ghosts here.
No, but I'm bringing that up, Cenk, because this has to do with people who watch our show, like people who are on the left. I'm not even considering Republicans.
No, I know, but then under that logic, we're never gonna get a female president.
No,
I can't have it. No way.
I'm not saying don't. I think that it is definitely possible to get a female president. I don't know if you can have an all-women ticket.
No, I really disagree. So look, last thing on this, and then we'll get to the Kamala Harris and Biden half, which is I have a totally different take on. So look, I know how real it is. I told you guys in 2016, I talked to that guy who I know, classic Uber driver stories, cliche, blah, blah, blah. But he's from South Jersey, grew up in Philly, voted Democrat his whole life, but couldn't bring himself to vote in this election. He was saying at the time, it was right after the Democratic convention. And he was a truck driver for most of his life. And I said, why? And he's like, oh, I hate Trump, hate him, hate him, hate him. Would you have voted for Bernie? In a second. So would have voted for Bernie, so you think good guy. And I said, why not Hillary? She's, she's a snob, elitist. Okay, fair, right? Okay. And then he's like, and you've been married, she's a broad.
Yeah, Cenk.
And I was like, no.
Thanks for making my case for me.
No, I know, I am making your case for you on purpose. So I understand that. Having said that, I think what people respect the most is strength, okay? So if you're not going to do 2 women on the ticket because you're worried about sexism, it almost feels like a weaker strategy. Whereas the bolder, stronger strategy is, yeah, that's right, we didn't stutter. There's 2 women on the ticket. And by the way, it would also, what do we tell corporate Democrats all the time? You're not gonna win the Republican voters. And I know this unfortunately applies to some Democratic voters as well, not nearly as much as Republican voters, but go excite your own base. My God, how many people would be excited about an all-female ticket and you could drive up your own base? You see what I'm saying?
I get it. But like, that's something worth fighting for if you have the right VP pick, right? And
I totally agree with that.
And so like, okay, so the 2 people that she mentioned, Kamala Harris, who, look, Kamala Harris has her flaws for sure, right? And we've talked about it on the show, but she definitely has her strengths as well. Unfortunately, those strengths didn't really come through much on the debate stage. However, like Biden, what are you doing with Biden? Why are you mentioning Biden?
And now this is now bordering on Cenk apologist, and then I'll get to my critique.
Yeah, Cenk, what's going on?
Hold on, then I'll get to my critique. So I think that saying Biden is kind of a way of her being strong, saying like, oh, Biden's considering me for his VP. How about I consider him for my VP? That's how I perceived it. Maybe I'm being too fair, too generous.
You are, because she said that before Biden said that he would consider her. And Biden did have an interview with Axios. He did say that he'd consider Warren, but not really, okay? And again, this is after Warren had her interview with the Associated Press. Take a look.
Well, you mentioned some women that you would consider for vice president. You didn't mention Senator Warren. Why?
The reason I was reluctant to mention anyone is because, first of all, if I mention anyone who is running, first of all, it's presumptuous of me to decide who I'd have as a vice president. I'm not even the nominee yet. That's number 1. Number 2.
But people use it as a window into your thinking.
Well, they do, but they also use it as a window into saying I'm being presumptuous, a window into saying that I'm not taking so-and-so seriously. And the issue for me will be, if I'm fortunate enough to be the nominee, is who am I most comfortable with that I'm confident that if I turn over responsibility, I'm not going to be surprised.
Okay, so here's a mulligan. Would you like to add Senator Warren to your list?
I'd add Senator Warren to the list. I'd add all, but she's going to be very angry I haven't said that. The question is, would she add me to her list?
She said, yeah, I mean.
Yeah, I don't think that Biden wants to be VP again, so I wouldn't have gone in that direction. But no, he obviously doesn't mean it because they're not simpatico. And so that gets to my critique. No, should Warren consider Biden for VP? Of course not. Not just because he was already VP and it's preposterous, but because you don't agree with Biden. So what happens if something happens to you? The most important thing for the vice president is that you would take over, or that person would take over. Look, they're all in their 70s, let's keep it real, including Elizabeth Warren, she's 70. And Biden is 77, et cetera. And so, and Bernie's right there with Biden. So, like something could happen, knock on wood, 222, right? No, I don't want Biden to become president after we defeated him in that scenario where we defeated him in the primaries. That's nuts, absolutely nuts. No way, no way, no way, right? And Kamala Harris, look, you know who Kamala Harris is but is she better than Biden and Buttigieg? Yes. Is she the person I'd pick or have on a list for VP? No.
But like, okay, in one other campaign event, right? She was asked about who she would put in her cabinet, and she mentioned Deval Patrick, who, like, by the way, where is that guy? Like, didn't he start running?
Yeah, he did start running, and the press told us, "Oh, that's it. Here comes Deval Patrick," and then there he went. It's still at 0% because they're
like private
the only
equity
people
guy,
interested in
Deval Patrick.
Yeah, I know, but remember, so sometimes people get on Ayanna Pressley for backing Warren instead of Bernie Sanders. But Ayanna Pressley and Warren are both from Massachusetts, and Warren was helpful to her. So I get that, right? And Deval Patrick also from Massachusetts, so they probably worked together when he was governor and she was senator. So they have some relationship. But overall, would I put Deval Patrick in my cabinet? No. Would I pick Kamala Harris as my VP? Would I counsel that? No. The thing is, there's not that many prominent progressives. So like if you're Elizabeth Warren, it's a great question as who you would pick to be your VP. And it's not an easy one. So Stacey Abrams is an easy answer because we don't know that much about her. What we know is she ran as fairly progressive in Georgia, which is great. And she was strong after the election saying, no, they stole this election and I'm not gonna concede it. I love that, right? So there's a couple of things to love about Stacey Abrams, but do we really know who she is?
No, we don't, and that's a fair point. But she didn't even float that name. Let me be clear. The Associated Press floated that name. Elizabeth Warren didn't. But look, I think, and I apologize because his name escapes me right now, but think about who Bernie Sanders has surrounded himself with, like the guy who's advising him on foreign policy. He's not some like career politician, right? Like he's not some like seasoned, political guy who's been working with Bernie forever in the great state of Vermont. He's like some guy who's not really mired in the political muck at all. And he's been giving him great advice on how to deal with foreign policy issues. Anyway, I bring that up because like it's okay to think outside the box. You don't have to like immediately rely on someone who's been in politics forever and might have have some name recognition, but along with that name recognition comes a bunch of things that people are gonna latch onto to attack you, and rightfully so when you're floating names like Deval Patrick.
Yeah, so what I'm hearing from you is Meg Whitman.
No, yeah.
I'm kidding.
Yeah, that'd be a great all-female ticket. I'm sure that would win.
Yeah, you know what would be a badass ticket, totally unexpected. I'm sure she wouldn't do it. But if Warren were to be the nominee and she's like, my VP is Nina Turner, I'd be like, whoa,
that would be
I didn't see that coming. Yes, I'm all in for that ticket. So again, very, very unlikely. Of course, Nina Turner is one of the chairs of Bernie Sanders' campaign.
God, I love Nina Turner.
Well, who doesn't love Nina?
Yeah,
well, actually,
amazing.
The entire establishment is the answer to who doesn't love Nina Turner, but that's why we love her so much. But the other thing, last thing I'll leave you on this is think about who's gonna be in the cabinet of a progressive president. Because they're not gonna pick, I mean, certainly Bernie Sanders. Now let's get back to the most progressive candidate and the one we both back. Okay, so he is not gonna put Obama and Clinton people in his cabinet.
Nope.
Okay, so man, that cabinet could be amazing. And he doesn't mind what the establishment says. So I don't know who's gonna put in there, but dude, the establishment, buckle up, brace for impact.
If he gets elected and he needs someone to literally clean cabinets in his office. I will do it. I'll take it.
Yeah, Anna Kasparian for press secretary. All right, well, we'll see how that goes. But yes, it's exciting to think of. Bottom line on Elizabeth Warren's answer, I would love an all-female ticket. But of course, it depends on the person. You don't pick based on gender, you pick based on policy.
Yes, definitely.
And so if she went with a bold, progressive man or woman, that's obviously the correct path. Do not go with a moderate, because God forbid something happens to you and we lose all progress.